Julian Hart was the kind of man who had everything: a name that carried weight in boardrooms, a face that adorned the covers of business magazines, and a bank account that made him one of the youngest billionaires in America. But all the luxury, all the power, couldn't fill the one aching truth buried deep within him: he was sterile. It wasn't just speculation. It was a medically confirmed, cold and clinical fact. At 30, after a traumatic health complication and surgery, 3 different specialists told him the same thing: you'll never be able to father a child. The word struck him harder than any market crash or hostile takeover. Julian smiled in public, hid his heartbreak in private, and buried the grief beneath spreadsheets and charity galas. He told no one. Not his lovers, not his advisors, not even his mother. He built a world around silence and control. Until she entered his life. Ana Delgado came into Julian's orbit as quietly as the wind. A migrant from Guatemala, she had come to America in search of better opportunities. She didn't dream of wealth, just dignity. She was hired as a housemaid at Julian's Los Angeles mansion. She worked with grace, kept to herself, and made herself invisible, the way many domestic workers learn to do in the homes of the rich. But Ana wasn't ordinary. She smiled at the flowers she watered on the rooftop. She sang lullabies to herself in Spanish while dusting ancient furniture. She treated everything with care, even the things others overlooked. Julian noticed. At first, it was just curiosity. He found himself watching from the hallway as she arranged flowers. Then it became conversation, brief exchanges about the weather, about music, about how she missed her little sister. Then one stormy night, when a charity dinner ran late and Ana had stayed behind to help clean, Julian offered her a warm cup of tea while she waited for the rain to stop. One conversation turned into many. In that cozy library, something broke open in Julian. Maybe it was the thunder, maybe it was Ana's listening silence, but he spoke about things he never shared. About the loneliness that clung to him like a shadow. About the legacy he thought he'd never leave. About the children he'd never hold. "I can't have children," he said quietly, as if confessing a crime. "The doctors told me a long time ago. It's not possible." Ana looked at him, not with pity, but with something softer, understanding. "Sometimes," she said gently, "the universe gives us what doctors say we can't have. They didn't plan it." That night was not about passion or power. It was about filling a void that both had carried too long. They fell asleep on the library couch, wrapped in blankets and fragile hope. The next morning, Julian was gone. He left her a note. "You deserve a life I can never give you. I'm sorry." Ana didn't cry. She folded the note, placed it in her suitcase, and left the mansion forever. She never contacted him again. Until 3 years later. Julian had tried to forget. He buried himself in new ventures, surrounded himself with women who smiled for cameras, but none who saw his soul. He had everything, except peace. Then, one crisp winter morning, a letter arrived at his New York office. Handwritten. Postmarked from Oregon. No logo. Just a name in the corner: Delgado. Julian's heart slammed in his chest as he opened the envelope. "Julian," the letter read. "I never meant to leave like that. But I didn't know how to tell you. I gave birth to twins. Their names are Mateo and Mia. They are beautiful. And, they are yours. I know what you were told. I know this seems impossible. But they look just like you. And every day I watch them laugh, I believe in miracles a little more." Julian stared at the letter, breathless. No. It couldn't be. He had lived with that diagnosis. Doctors don't lie. Biology doesn't bend. But Ana wasn't a liar. She had never asked him for anything. And that shook him more than the news itself. If she'd wanted money, fame, it would have made sense. But she only wrote to tell him the truth. The next morning, Julian chartered a private jet to Oregon. He found her in a modest neighborhood, standing in the doorway of a small duplex with 2 children playing behind her. When their eyes met, time folded. She was thinner, but her eyes still held that quiet fire. The twins peeked out, curious. 1 boy, 1 girl. They looked no older than 2 or 3. And then Julian froze. Matteo had his stormy gray eyes. Mia had his smirk, the same crooked smile he used to hate seeing in the mirror. Julian dropped to his knees. Can I talk to them?" he whispered. Mia ran straight to him, giggling. Matteo held back but gave a shy smile. Julian wrapped his arms around them both, and something inside him, something that had been broken for years, suddenly healed. "I need a DNA test," he said to Anna that night. "Not because I don't believe you. But because I need to believe this is real." Anna nodded. "I understand." 3 days later, the results came. 99.999% probability of paternity. Julian sat in his rental car, staring at the paper, tears streaming silently down his face. He had been told it was impossible. He had lived like it was the truth. But now, sitting in the parking lot of a pharmacy in a small Oregon town, he realized, sometimes, life doesn't care about facts. Sometimes, love has its own science. He didn't return to his mansion. Instead, he rented a house nearby. He wanted to know them, not as a visitor, not as a donor, but as a father. He learned to braid Mia's hair with trembling fingers. He built model planes with Matteo. He burned pancakes, laughed during pillow fights, and read bedtime stories that made him cry harder than the kids. Slowly, Anna let him back in. Not because of the money, but because of the effort. Because Julian showed up, every single day. Not as a billionaire, but as a man trying to heal what he broke. The tabloids found out. Billionaire's secret twins. Miracle babies or scandal. From maid to mother of a mogul's heirs. But Julian didn't hide. He held a press conference, standing with Mia in one arm and Matteo on his other side. "I was told I'd never be a father," he said. "I believed that. I buried that dream. But life had other plans. These are my children. They are not a scandal. They are my salvation." The world softened. People began writing letters. Single mothers. Fathers who had struggled. Couples who had given up hope. Julian had built companies that changed the world, but this changed him. He sold his biggest shares, stepped down as CEO, and moved to Oregon permanently. He didn't marry Anna, not immediately, but he built a home with her. He bought a little farmhouse on a hill, filled it with toys, books, and laughter. He started a foundation, the Miracle Within Project, offering grants for fertility support, childcare, and education for immigrant mothers. Every program was named after someone he loved: Anna's garden, Mia's library, Matteo's lab. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the twins chased fireflies, Anna stood beside him. "You've changed," she whispered. Julian smiled, watching Matteo fall in the grass. "No. I just finally became who I was meant to be." And when Mia came running, wrapping her tiny arms around his leg and calling out, "Papa," Julian knew, this was the legacy he was meant to leave. Not stock options. Not headlines. But love. Real, messy, miraculous love.